Welcome back to Getting Started with Game Creator. Characters are one of the most important parts of any game. They allow scenes to be interactive and immerse the user in the world in front of them. Game Creator makes it really easy to create these entities. To create the most basic character, all you have to do is right-click on the Hierarchy panel and select Game Creator and Characters. The only difference between a playable and non-playable character is that the first one has the Is Player field checked, which instructs it to process inputs sent by the user. For example, if we enter Play Mode, we'll see how we can move the player around while we press the W, A, S, D keys or using a gamepad's left joystick. Alternatively, you can use the player prefab from the templates that Game Creator comes with. To install this template, open the Install window, selecting it from the top toolbar. Look for the Characters template and click the Install button. You can now select the player prefab and drag it onto the scene. This prefab contains a playable character with a bunch of visual scripting logic that expand its capabilities and allow it to walk, run, jump, and even enter a ragdoll state. Changing the visual appearance of a character is also very easy. Here, we have imported a custom 3D model. To change how a character looks, select it and expand the animation section. Drag and drop the 3D model onto the box that reads, Drop a 3D model. And voila! Now let's take a closer look at the character component. The top section lets you define if a character should be considered as a playable one or not. Below, you can determine if the character should be influenced by the timescale or ignore it. The stick person figure on the left indicates whether the character has any of its limbs available to perform an action or not. The next section is called the Kernel and is made of 5 units. The player is only relevant if the character is marked as a playable one and it processes the input sent by the user. You can change the type of this unit clicking on the right side button. For example, we can change the player input from directional to point and click. Now, if we click the play button, we can see how the character only moves when clicking on the floor. The next unit is called Motion, and it functions as the brain of the character. You can configure properties such as the speed at which the character moves, its bounds, and how gravity affects it. The Driver unit determines how the character moves. By default, it uses a character controller, but you can switch it to a NavMesh agent if you want obstacle avoidance, or even a rigid body that realistically reacts to physical interactions. The Rotation unit decides where and how the character rotates. In most cases, you'll want them to face towards their walking direction, but you can also tell them to strafe while aiming at a certain object or look towards the camera's direction. The Animation unit holds information regarding the character's animator, which gait should be used by default, and its skeletal information. It is worth noting these 2 breathing and twitching subsections. Characters in Game Creator come with a system that allows them to procedurally increase and decrease their exertion, as well as the amount their limbs randomly twitch. Below the kernel, there are 3 more sections. The inverse kinematics allows to add and remove different IK systems, such as correctly aligning the feet on uneven ground and allowing the torso to slightly pivot around itself to look at points of interest. The footsteps section determines what bones of the model should be considered as legs, so when the character moves, a sound and a particle effect can be played at each step. Ragdoll lets you configure the recovery animations used when exiting from a ragdoll state. With all these in mind, you should be able to create your own characters and populate your worlds with them. In the next episode, we'll put on the cinema director hat and cover how to create different cameras to track the action from different points of view. See you around!